Hey, so I wanted to take a quick second to make a video from one of the homework questions. I've gotten a few questions from you guys. So this one says that you are drawing a ball out of box 1, so out of this, and you're putting it in box 2, and then you're drawing a ball out of box 2, you're putting it in box 3, and then you're drawing a ball in box 3, and then that ball is recorded. And so this is a multi-stage experiment because I'm doing 1, 2, 3 events. I'm drawing from here, then drawing from here, then drawing from here. And so the questions specifically say, find the probability that the last ball from box 3 is white, and then find the probability that the last ball drawn is black. So probably the easiest way to go about this is to make a tree diagram with all the probabilities and then use that tree diagram to find these two specific probabilities. So I went ahead and made the tree diagram itself, just for sake of time. So here I'm starting. On my first draw, I can either draw a white or a black ball. On my second draw, I can either draw white or black. And on the third draw from box 3, white or black. So you can see I've kind of tried to label off to the left over here that this is box 1, this is what's coming out of box 2, this is what's coming out of box 3. So I went and I copied down again the problem just so we wouldn't have to keep flipping back and forth. So now we're going to use this, the actual balls in the box, and we're going to convert that into probabilities. Now this is a little more complicated because I'm taking one ball out of one box and I'm putting it into the other box. So let's first just start with the first line. So I draw, it's either white or black. Well, in box 1, the probability of a white ball is going to be the 4 out of a total of 6. So the probability of white is 4 out of 6. Now, definitely reduce that down. Oops. 4 out of 6 or 2 out of 3. Now, because we're just looking at the end probabilities, it doesn't particularly matter about reducing, but on the test, if I were to ask you for the tree diagram, I want to see the reduced one. I would like to see both, but specifically the reduced one. So there's the probability of drawing a white ball, essentially out of box 1. The probability of drawing a black ball out of box 1 is going to be 2 out of the total of 6, which is going to give me 1 out of 3. Okay, so there's my first two probabilities. Now here's where it gets a little difficult. I am assuming, so I'm going to do this side first. I'm assuming that I've drawn a white ball. So what that means, and I'll just have to do gray, I'm assuming that when I drew a ball out of box 1, it was white. And so I have put that extra white ball into box 2. So now in box 2, I had 3 white and 4 black, but because of this tree diagram, I've assumed that the one I drew out was white. So this ball is now in box 2. So the probability of drawing a white ball in box 2 now is 4, because I added one in there. I put in a white ball, 4 out of the total of 8. So the probability of a white ball in box 2 is going to be 4 out of 8, or 1/2. The probability of drawing a black ball out of box 2, now I'm still under the assumption that I drew out a white ball, and it's now in box 2. So the probability of drawing a black ball out of box 2 is going to be 4 out of the total of 8, because I still have that white ball in there from the first draw, or 1/2. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the other side. So now I'm assuming, so I'm going down this side, I'm assuming now that out of box 1, I drew a black ball. And so coming out of box 1, I drew a black ball. So now I've put that into box 2. So where I used to have 4 black balls, I now have 5, because that one I drew out of box 1 has been dropped into box 2. So the probability of black, so I'm right here, the probability of drawing this black is going to be 5 out of the total of 8. And then the probability of drawing white is going to be 3 out of the total of 8. Okay, so that takes care of box 2. So now in this next line, so all right here, I'm now assuming that I'm drawing out of box 2 and putting into box 3. So now I have assumed that I've drawn out a white ball from box 2, and I have put in a white ball to box 3. So I've drawn out a white ball and I've put in a white ball. And so the probability of drawing white out of box 3, so I'm right over here, the probability of drawing white out of box 3 is going to be 4 out of 4. Or 1. The probability of drawing a black ball out of box 3 is going to be 0 out of 4, or 0. Okay, I'm going over to the next side. So the next one says, well, before we drew a white ball, now this one says, well, assume you're going to draw a black ball out of box 2 and put it into box 3. So assume you're drawing a black ball out of box 2 and putting it into box 3. And so the probability of white is going to be 3. There's 3 white balls out of a total of 4, because I just put in an extra. The probability of drawing a black ball out of box 3 is going to be 1, because I have that 1 ball I just dropped in, out of a total of 4. Okay? And then the next one. So now I am going this way. So now this is assuming I drew a white ball out of box 2 and I dropped it into box 3. Oops, a white ball. So I pulled out a white ball of box 2 and I'm dropping it in to box 3. So the probability of white in that box is going to be 4 out of 4, or 1. The probability of black is going to be 0 out of 4, or 0. Okay, so now I'm assuming that I drew a black ball out of box 2, and I'm going to drop it in to box 3. So the probability of drawing a white ball out of that box is going to be 3 out of 4, and the probability of drawing a black ball is now 1 out of 4. So there's my factor tree. It's a lot of stuff happening. Now the question said, let's go back up to the top, find the probability that the last ball from box 3 is white. So let's look at my factor tree. The probability that the last ball is white is going to come from this tree, this tree, this tree, or that tree. So what you're going to do is go through, I'm sorry, I should have extended these further. Let me redraw these. this tree, that one, and that one. So you're going to look that the last ball is white, which came from all of those. So what you're going to go through, and just for sake of time, I'm not going to do them all. You're going to go through and multiply on every tree branch. So for this first one, the probability of white, white, white would be 2/3 times 1/2 times 1. That would be 1 probability. Then you're going to do the same thing for this branch. Multiply all of those. And then you're going to do everything, multiply those. Multiply those. Because it's looking for white or white or white or white, you are going to then add all of these individual probabilities. And that is the probability that the last ball is white. For the next one, let me take all this off. For the next one, find the probability that the last ball drawn is black is going to be all the other ones. And so that will be that, and that. Now, the cool thing about this is because it can either be white or black, when you add these two probabilities, once you get the final probabilities, you should get 1, because that covers all of the scenarios. So, hopefully that helps. If you still have questions, of course, let me know, and I wish you luck.